If you've listened to the last few episodes, you already know this. None of the issues we have discussed education, fatherless homes, youth crime, housing, birth rates, mental health are isolated. They look like separate problems, but they're not. They're part of one big system, one machine, and it's producing the same output over and over. Weak families, weak people, weak communities, and a nation that's becoming less stable and more dependent. So today's the finale. No more what's wrong with the world. No more where's Australia heading? Downhill. We know. This is how it's all connected. What do we do about it as an individual, community, or country? Welcome back to another episode of the Finance Bible podcast. Zeke here.
And your co-host Oscar, but before we get into it, please note that nothing in this podcast should ever be considered as personal financial advice.
Although, if financial advice is what you are seeking, let us know. We can get you in touch with the correct team.
But for now, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Let's get into it. So, first of all, apologies in the delay of getting this done. I was in a bit of an accident overseas. Had a bit of an accident, ended up with many broken bones, whether it be ribs or collarbones, so on. A little bit of shoulder damage, but here we are months later on the road to recovery, a little bit of physio here and there, and we're back. So let's jump straight in. Here's the big idea. When a civilization weakens its standards, breaks the family, makes housing unaffordable, and feeds people absolute garbage, you don't get freedom, you get fragility. And what does fragility create? More crime, more anxiety, more medication, fewer births, lower productivity, more dependence on the government, and worse outcomes for children. That's not politics, it's not ideology, it's cause and effect. That simple. So, what is the common link between all the different episodes that we've talked about? Incentives. The system rewarding the wrong things. In education, we reward softness, subjectivity, excuses, participation, involvement, not actual outcomes. In family law and culture, we normalise separation and treat commitment like an optional extra. In housing, we reward speculation and demand growth, but choke supply. In health, we subsidise treatment and ignore prevention. We allow ultra-processed food to dominate the market. So the question isn't even why is society falling apart? It's why are we surprised when the incentives are built to produce this exact same result again and again and again? Let's start with education, because without education, we have nothing. Education is what builds a citizen. So schools producing kids who can't focus, can't handle pressure, can't communicate, can't manage money, and don't respect authority, then you don't get strong adults. You get a population that needs constant rescue. Just a population of people who are in endless trouble, needing help left, right, and centre. And we actually said it in the education episode. When boys don't have fathers at home and male teachers are disappearing, down at 17%, a lot of boys grow up with no male guidance anywhere. And that matters because the whole discipline chain is, generally speaking, as we discussed, through fatherhood or through male dominance for young boys, who are the ones causing trouble most of the time. What needs to change? We need to bring back objective standards, exams, benchmarks, competition. Not everyone gets a magical pass, not everyone's special. Kids need to know where they rank because reality ranks you. As the days go on and you do things at work and you do things in your life, everything is a competition. Literally everything. If you want that job, someone else wants that job. If you want to come first in a race, someone else wants to come first in it. If you want that car, someone else wants that car. If you want that girl, someone else wants that girl. Every single thing in life, if you want that sale, we're talking work, if you're in sales, if you want that sale, guess what? Someone else does too. You want their business? Someone else does. Everything is a competition. Everything needs to be competitive. Bring it back. We don't need to be doing all these participation awards and encouraging everyone and saying, hey, it doesn't matter if you come first or last, you tried. No, it does matter. Trying is great, but guess what? Succeeding's better. Compulsory financial literacy is another point. We need to be learning about tax, debt, interest, budgeting, how loans work, how superannuation works. We live in Australia. We have great superannuation. How do we use it? What does it do? how not to get trapped. So, simply put, bring in some kind of literacy around finance. People are just burdened by endless debt. Our median house price now is above $800,000. Median loan is above $600,000. So we need to figure out, if we're getting every single person in the country with that debt, how do they pay it? How can they start finding other ways to do things? How can they budget? How can they invest? How do loans actually work? Do they understand it's a 30-year commitment and they're going to pay half of the bloody loan size in interest as well? We need to bring back in education compulsory physical training as well. So not just a little bit of sport here and there, not, oh, in year 11 and 12, you can opt in to doing a bit of sport and choose an elective. No, we need everyone doing it. Real physical development. The body trains the mind. We need discipline, self-respect, stress tolerance, confidence, activity. That will help with many things that we'll bring up later. So the mental health, general health in terms of fitness levels. But overall, discipline and commitment and competition, competitiveness, rivalry, confidence, bring it all in through compulsory physical training. And finally, with education, parent transparency. Simple, effective. Parents should be able to see exactly what's being taught easily. No secrecy, no ideological games, none of that nonsense. Just simply get it going where parents have direct access to the curriculum they can understand, and they can even go home, download it, and go, hey, look, today, what did you learn about? Tick, tick, tick. Okay, cool. They can sit there, they can get more involved, then the child's going to do better because it's getting enforced at home as well. For those of who have a home to go home to, which ultimately, if everything's followed in this guideline, they probably should. Because when education fails, the next thing that actually fails is family. So, simply put, if your family fails and education fails, game over. Fatherless home is not a sad story. It's a measurable predictor of poor outcomes. So, in the fatherless episode, we talked about the rise of single parent homes over the last few decades and the clear correlation with young delinquency, poverty, stress, disengagement from school, identity issues in kids. And then we also were able to connect it to things like birth rates, because when relationships are unstable, people have fewer children, and later as well, they delay it. But realistically, all of these different issues are the biggest predictor of what's going to happen. You start looking at the incarceration rates, you start looking at the suicide rates, you start looking at their results in school, and so on and so on, general behaviour, everything becomes worse. And the exact statistics of that we did discuss, but we're just going to keep this simple. We're going to talk about the issues. We're going to move on from the issues. We're going to make this just a simple episode where if you want the information, you can go back and listen to them. But let's move on. So, what actually fixes family? Realistically, it's culture and structure. So, commitment needs to be the default again. Stop treating marriage like a maybe. I mean, everyone goes into, oh, what's the worst that can happen? Just get divorced in 3 years. It's not a big deal. No, that's a big deal. Stop treating divorce like it's a casual option. It's not. Sure, exceptions exist. There's violence, there's safety, there's serious harm, and those kind of things are an obvious get out of jail free card. Run. But the baseline should be family stability is a societal priority. If that's not a priority, and if we're making things so easy to just, who cares, we'll just get out of there, no fault, no commitment, all good, then we end up with split homes, 80% of which end up with the mother, and then that's a whole bunch of children who don't have a father, and then they've got a 70% increased chance of going to jail, higher chance of failing, and so on. It just ends terribly. And fathers need to matter in policy. We need custody reform that encourages paternal involvement when safe and appropriate, obviously, and policies that don't treat dads as optional anymore. Because the data's brutal, father absent changes every single outcome more than any other indicator. That's the number one indicator of how a child is going to perform. Nothing else is a greater indicator. We need more community role models. Not everyone has a great father, and that's a reality. Like, It's going to happen no matter what changes. So we need things like sports clubs and mentors and male coaches and trade mentors and community leaders. And kids need that structure. We need them in the schools. More men that can sit down and have that role model and have those conversations with the kids and sort of be that area of discipline when needed, or that area of authority more so. When we're down at 17% males in schools and we have fatherless homes beyond measure, we are just endlessly going down a pit of chaos. Now, if you break families, what do? You create financial pressure. And what does that do? Pressures families. And what's the number one pressure on a family that's having financial issues? Housing. So then we move on to housing, the biggest pressure cooker of all. It's not just an economic issue, it's a relationship issue, a fertility issue, a mental health issue, a national stability issue, even turning international possibly. When homes cost insane multiples of income, so multiple of income, for example, if you're on 100K and your median house price is 900,000 or something, guess what? That's a 9 times multiple of your income. If you're in a partner on 200K, then it's 5 times multiple at $1 million. But you end up with delayed marriage, delayed children, dual income being required, single people struggling, increased stress, less time for family because you need to work more to be able to afford it, and more resentment across generations. So the more and more resentment builds, we go down a nasty path. The Australian dream of owning a home becomes an inheritance lottery. You rely on your parents, you're relying on people passing away, which is not convenient or productive. Now, we laid it all out in terms of what's driving it in the housing crisis episode: demand pressure, so migration levels and so on, supply bottlenecks, whether that be zoning, approvals, delays, trade shortages, incentives rewarding investment demand, or government help that genius government help, 5% deposit first time buyers, inflates prices and instead of fixing supply. And then the outcome's obvious. If you don't build enough and you keep increasing demand and you keep making it easier to get into it, then prices are going to rise, regardless of what the RBA does. The RBA can increase the interest rate again and again and again and again. But guess what? If the government are making incentives and there's bottleneck issues and migrations going on, and we've got banks changing their policy to allow more overtime to be taken into account, the prices are just going to go up and up and up. It's simple. If you don't build enough, you keep increasing demand, the prices will rise. That's not complicated. It's common sense. So how do we go about actually fixing that? Great question. We need to fast track supply like it's a literal national emergency, because it is. We need to streamline approvals, speed up land titling, reduce bureaucratic delays, and prioritise build completion. We need to align migration with build capacity. So if we can only build X amount of houses and our population is going up X amount, well, it doesn't make sense to let in another 500,000 people more than what we can build, does it? So common sense. If your housing stock cannot support your intake, you get inflation in shelter costs. Home inflation is the most damaging inflation there is. Stop using the first home buyer schemes as a band-aid. That's a government issue. So if you keep increasing people's borrowing power and increase without increasing supply, affordability is not going to happen. You just inflate the prices. If everyone gets the same bargaining power and there's no more properties, then guess what? It's going to go up. We need to fix productivity. We don't need housing demand to fake growth. The country needs real output, not just asset inflation. So what I mean by that is find other areas for GDP. Find other areas to show things going up. When housing and stress rise and health collapses, that's what happens next. People are time poor, money poor, stressed, exhausted, families broken, the housing's broken. Well, health goes next. So, why is health tied to everything? The health episode wasn't just about food, gym, exercise. It was about when a country becomes stressed, sedentary, over-medicated, undertrained, it becomes weak. And a weak population is easy to control and easy to sell to and easy to keep in a loop. If junk food's cheaper than real food, and then prevention's ignored, prevention of illness and so on, then obesity goes up. If obesity goes up, everything else goes up. our cost for aiding those with obesity goes up, and we're in a perpetual cycle of failure. If screens replace movement, mental health declines, purpose collapses, people medicate, medicate, medicate. As we learnt, the highest in the OECD for mental health medication. So, fixing health. We need to make prevention the standard. Prevention, spending the money on prevention and doing what it takes to prevent the illnesses that we face is much more effective than dealing with them after the fact. We need to get more bloods done, more screening done, more education on how everything works and why you need to do certain things and what health risks there are. Early intervention, not just prescriptions once you break. There's no point just going, oh yeah, this happened, here, have a prescription for your whole life, or something. Like, come on, there's so many better ways to do it. Food incentives. Make whole food cheaper. Make ultra-processed junk food less attractive. For example, maybe put a subsidy on whole food and an extra tax on ultra-processed rubbish. Teach kids how to read food labels. That's a big one. There's apps coming out now which are very helpful for people that don't have a good idea. But if kids know how to read that, and it's a very, very simple skill to learn, they can do it within a year of school, they can do it within a month of school, then they're going to be able to look at what they're buying, understand it, know the risks associated, and then ultimately lead a better life. And guess what? They can even educate their parents. Teach parents the basics without shame and without political spin too. So parents need to actually know all of the different things that can go on with health and how it works and that kind of thing without the nonsense. And then obviously bring physical training back. So body positivity, one of the greatest changes that I've ever seen in my life. Greatest as in, like, it's been a big change, not great. But one of the most severe changes I've seen over my lifetime is body positivity. And guess what? We don't need it. We don't need it. We don't need body positivity. We don't need acceptance as an excuse. You can still respect people and tell them the truth and let them know if they're going a little bit too far over the bandwagon. If they're falling off the fence and going down a slippery slope, strength matters, fitness matters, discipline matters, health matters. And then we end up with one big chain reaction. Simple. Lower standards in education create weak adults. Weak adults create unstable relationships. Unstable relationships create fatherless homes, which create fewer kids. Housing becomes unaffordable. Stress increases. Marriage delayed. Birthing downhill. Stress plus poor food plus sedentary living equals a health collapse. A health collapse adds hopelessness. Hopelessness leads to mental illness rising, medication rising. And then guess what? When you've got all of that cooking up together, you get higher crime, lower productivity, weaker communities, and then everyone fighting each other and no one being happy and satisfied. That's the loop. That's a machine. One thing leads to another, to another, to another, to another, to another, which all just ends up in a perpetual cycle of failure. What are some actual steps that you can take? If you're an individual, what can you do? Simple. Start training. Train 3 to 5 times a week. Eat real food as much as possible. Get rid of junk food as much as you can. Build skills that will make you valuable. Help those around you. Choose your partner carefully. Don't just go, oh, well, what's the worst? I can get divorced. Choose carefully. Think about it. Commit to them. Commit to the cause. Communicate your expectations early, clearly. Don't let screens raise your kids, and take responsibility for your outcomes and their outcomes. Whatever you're doing, whether you're a parent, about to be a parent, a kid, whatever it is, every step that you take and everything that you do is going to impact those around you. You are a product of those around you, and they're a product of you. If you're a community, same thing, but also then have mentorship networks, have sports clubs and coaches within them that can help. Community father figures. support for single parents without glorifying single parenting as the ideal. We don't need this whole single parents are great. Sure, some of them are. They do their best. Everything's great. But a couple is going to raise kids better than what a single parent can in most cases. We need local businesses supporting local families and local families supporting local businesses. In terms of policy, what needs to change? We need to change education, objective standards, financial literacy, physical training. In family, they need to change custody and father involvement where safe and appropriate, as well as looking into how to make divorce more of a punishment or a negative. Housing, supply acceleration, alignment of demand to capacity. So, for example, immigration. And then health, we need to focus on prevention first, food incentive reform, and education around mental health. That's it. Really not complicated. Not complicated at all. Just apparently really hard to do. These are, for the issues that we discussed in the last, 5 episodes? I think 6 even. For the different issues we've discussed, such a simple thing to change all of these just makes such a huge difference. And there's plenty more. We could go on further. I could even do another episode going much, much deeper into each of these. However, there's not really a need. We're at a point where if you've listened to each episode, we speak about that specific issue more in depth, and we talk about what different things can be done to fix it, and we talk about how it could change and what's causing the issues, then this episode is really common sense. It's just a bit of a wrap up so we can understand. So here's what I want you to do. If you've listened to this series and you agree that Australia is drifting, share this episode to one person who can handle the truth. And if you disagree, great. Send it to someone, debate it with them, but don't ignore it, because a family is a nucleus of civilization. A community is the nucleus of civilization. Health is within the nucleus. When you strengthen it, everything improves. We get safer streets, better kids, stronger health, more stability, and a future worth actually living, which results in suicide rates going down. As always, we hope that you enjoyed the episode. Share it around. I'll catch you next time. Well, that is the end of the episode. We hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, you know exactly what to do.
Hit that follow button, like button, subscribe, share it to your friends, families, or even a co-worker.
If you're really feeling generous, you can send it off to an ex. But catch you next time. Hope you enjoyed it. Dale.
Ciao.